Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a medieval pilgrim scrip or pilgrim's bag. Images of these bags are common throughout the 13th and 14th centuries in medieval manuscripts depicting those traveling from religious site to site making pilgrimage throughout this time. There are several different shapes for pilgrim's bags, but generally they are all kind of an envelope style with the bag and then a flap that goes over the front to keep the contents inside. They often have a long strap in what we would consider a messenger style bag today. So based on some of the images I've found, I am going to create a very simplistic envelope style bag, and I think I'll keep it around 9 by 10 in size. That should be big enough for my cell phone and keys, plus any extra kid stuff, because let's face it, I'm the carrier of all the things. Like most medieval items, this is very rectangular in construction and as far as the pattern is concerned. The pattern itself is going to consist of a long rectangle. You're going to want the front and the back to be the same size. I'm shooting for 9 by 10 here, but you could go up to 12 or 13 inches or as little as 8 inches if you'd liked. Now, what we are going to do is lay out a long rectangle on our paper. For the flap, I decided, and there are a lot of different shapes, but I decided for this particular purpose, I wanted to use something pointed like an envelope. I had the idea to hang a tassel off of the end of the point, and I just thought that would be a really cute bag. I think this would be great for history bounding or for historical recreation. Either way, it's totally period appropriate. So again, there are lots of different types of flaps. There are rounded ones, curved ones, some are just simple rectangles. You can use your creative license here, and I recommend that whatever shape you choose, make sure to leave a couple of inches here to give the flap room to fold over. So now we have the basic design that we want for our bag. What we need to do now is figure out the strap. In order to do this, I'm going to make a simple strap about 1 to 1.5 inches wide. So I need to pattern a strip 2.5 inches wide and roughly 39 inches long. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to the pattern. And now that the pattern is drawn out and cut, we're ready to cut our fabric. You'll need one length of fabric for the outside and one for the lining. This is a great way to use up some scraps or extra lengths of fabric that are maybe not quite wide enough for anything else. If you've got wool in your stash, wool makes a great bag. You could also use anything like duck cloth, canvas, or denim. That is up to you as to how historically accurate you want your bag to be. You could also do this out of leather if you had the resources for that. I like my bags to be a little bit more sturdy, so I would go with something like some heavyweight wool or heavy corduroy, something like that, maybe a heavy brocade, lots of different choices there. So it just depends again on how you want this to look. Now, if you're going to use a lighter weight fabric, you need to make sure that you're going to line it with something that's going to give it some body. Otherwise, when you try to put things in it, it's going to get floppy. So we need to cut out one of the pattern on the outer fabric and one on the lining fabric. For the lining, I just use a simple cotton broadcloth or quilter's cotton. If you've got something fun or funky that you want to put on the inside, it's kind of like a little pop of excitement. I am 100% all for that. You know, I like to say historically adequate. So if you want some Harry Potter fabric inside your pilgrim's bag, by all means, go for it. All right, now that we've got all of our pieces cut out, it's time to put it together. First thing I do is sew up the strap into a tube. Fold it in half and sew all the way along the edge. Once that is done, I pin the flap outside to inside, right sides together, and sew up the flap only. Then we begin to work on the bag itself. Turning the flap right side out, I then pin the outside of the bag right sides together and sew that up to where the flap starts. Now, here's the trick. When doing the lining, you need to make sure that the seams for the outside and the inside are going to kiss. By this, I mean making sure that the seams are all hidden within the bag. Hopefully, this part of the video makes sense. It is a little hard to explain because this method can be quite tricky when you do it the first time, but I do prefer this method because it's easier to keep all of the pieces and parts together. So, now that you have pinned your lining right sides together, sew the sides up all the way to where the flap starts. P.S. Don't do as I do and put pins in your mouth. Holy schmoly, that's dangerous. But we all do it, don't we? Once all the sides are sewn, tuck the lining into the bag, push out your corners, and now it's time to turn the strap right side out and press all of the pieces. So once the strap is turned, it's over to the iron we go. I use glass head pins here on the edges to make sure that I'm getting a crisp press and that the edges don't roll under. Do not use plastic quilting pins or anything plastic. Ask me how I know. Go ahead and give the flap a good press, and then just give the bag sides a quick press. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. To press the strap, I have a method I use where I take 2 long, thicker pins, pin to the ironing pad or board, and by pulling the tube through the pins with a little bit of manipulation from my fingers, I can get a pretty straight press on the strap. As you know, when you press straps, they tend to twist or to turn because of the lack of bias, so they tend to roll. So this just kind of helps to control that. Now that everything's gotten a good press, it's time to sew on the strap and stitch up the inside. Pinning the strap on to the back of the bag, about an inch down from where the flap folds over, then I use a whip stitch, and I try not to go all the way through to the lining. I sew on the strap ends. Then, turning the outside fabric of the bag in a 1/4 inch, I use pins to hold it down, and then I do the same to the lining, turning it toward the outer fabric. Once again, making sure that all of the seams are enclosed within the inside of the bag. Pinning them together ensures that I can stitch them down nicely and fairly invisibly. I do try to use what I call a ladder stitch. Some people call it a slip stitch here, where the stitch is hidden within the 2 seams, so you do not see any stitch lines. Chances are there is an easier way to do this. I prefer to finish my bags by hand, but if you have another way, please do what works for you. Okay, so we finished the construction on the bag. Now all we have left to do is to embellish it. So I'm going to make a cute little tassel to hang off the point of that flap there. So in order to do that, I have my trusty tassel maker. I picked this up just at a hobby store here in the States, and it comes with instructions. And as you can see, it's called the Cousin DIY Tassel Maker. It's made of acrylic, and I have a couple of skeins of embroidery floss in 2 different colors that match the bag, and we're going to wrap both together to make a quick little tassel. All right, the tassel's made. So here's the fun bit. We have to separate all of the pieces of thread. So I take a comb and just comb out I don't know what you call them, the lengths of embroidery thread. Every bit of embroidery thread has 6 threads, I think, together. This separates all of them just to make a nice fluffy tassel. So I think it turns out really cute, and I like making these. I use them a lot when I'm making pattern osters and that sort of thing. So it's just a fun little piece to add authenticity or something extra to a project. So there's the tassel that's finished, and now we're going to sew it on. Okay, to attach the tassel, I'm using an embroidery needle, and I'm just running it through the point of the bag here with my tassel attached, and I'm going to run that through the bag. It's a little bit difficult to pull that much embroidery thread through the seam at one time, So it might take a little bit of work, but once I get it through, I can pull the other length of thread that is attaching it back through the rust there, and then I'm going to tie it off. And with that, the bag is complete. Put it on, fill it up, and off you go. I know a lot of people, myself included, like to put my badges, my doodads, my baubles from each event on the flap, much like those on pilgrimage in the Middle Ages might have done with the badges and tokens they received from each stop along their journey. And there's your QR code. Thanks so much for playing, guys. This badge game has been an absolute blast for me. I am hashtag badge fairy here, and so you've probably been following along with me this whole week preparing for this, and I've just got to say thank you guys so much for enjoying it as much as you have. I think I have had as much fun doing it as you have playing it. So thanks so much. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So, there you have it, friends. I hope that you enjoy the rest of CocoVid if you're watching this during the event. And if not, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. As always, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.